Prime Minister Gillard, you've been involved in discussions about the royal succession. Can I ask you, do you think that the Queen will be the last unelected head of state in Australia? And if that is the case, can I ask you how you personally feel about that, given that you were born as a subject of Her Majesty in the United Kingdom? And a question to Prime Minister Cameron. There's a report today saying that executive pay has risen by 49% back in Britain. There's also another report in the FT which says that civil service bonuses have increased by £4. Can I ask you how you feel about those, given that obviously your central message is belt tightening? And can I ask you, what do you feel about the High Pay Commission, Deborah Hargreaves, talking about the closed shop of remuneration committees sitting around sorting out their own pay? And do you agree with Vince Cable that the time has come for specific action on this?
Well, if I can canvass my personal history, I'm the daughter of a man from a Welsh mining village. I'm the daughter of a woman whose maiden name was Mackenzie, and I've lived in Australia since I was 4 years old, so I am an Australian. So any of the perspectives that I bring on questions about our constitutional arrangements, I bring through the eyes of being an Australian. You don't get an accent like this from being anything else. Ultimately, I think the Australian people will work their way through changes to our constitutional arrangements, but there is not a great deal of focus on this in our current national discourse. We did have a Republican referendum some time back, and I think it is fair to say that in contemporary times there is less focus on the issue than there was back then. The Queen has certainly been received with a great degree of affection on this visit. Literally thousands of Australians turning out to see her wherever she's gone. So there is a sense of personal connection with the Queen, which has been very on display. And I'd have to say a sense of excitement about the young royals as well.
Thank you. This is a concerning report, particularly at a time when household budgets are very tight, when people have difficult circumstances, the increase in food prices and fuel prices, 6 million public sector workers on a pay freeze. So it is an issue of concern. Let me take the three parts to your question. First of all, on public sector pay, I believe this government has actually led by example. All ministers coming into this government accepted a 5% pay cut and a freeze for the whole of the Parliament. We are trying as hard as we can to apply the concept that people shouldn't be expecting to be paid more than the Prime Minister, and that has actually had quite a downward thrust on a lot of jobs in the public sector, and also right through local government, where you can see a number of local councils now cutting the pay of their chief executives. So I think actually the public sector is giving a lead from the top by example. The second point you raise about the closed shop, about remuneration committees, this has been a problem, there's no doubt about that. One of the things we're doing, and it's becoming a bit of a theme today about the empowerment of women, is making sure there are more women non-executives on boards. I think at the moment there's too much of a closed circle of the people made available to be non-executives, and by opening this up, by increasing the number of women in our boardrooms, I think that will have a beneficial effect. In terms of executive pay more generally, I think there are three important principles here: transparency, accountability, responsibility. Transparency, we need all these figures published, all these figures known, so that you can compare and contrast, so that shareholders know what they are paying for. You need accountability, so that is to strengthen the hands of shareholders so that they feel that they are taking responsibility for remuneration in the boardroom. I think that is important. But above all, there is responsibility. I think boards have got to think, when they are making pay awards, is this the right and responsible thing to do? Of course you've got to attract the best talent to run the business that you are accountable for as a non-executive director, but is what you're doing responsible? Many organisations do now look at the multiple in terms of the lowest paid in an organisation and the highest paid in an organisation. And I think everyone, whether they're in public life, whether they're in private enterprise, they've got to be able to justify the decisions they make about pay. So I welcome the debate about this. I welcome the transparency. I want to see proper accountability, and I believe in a responsible society, and that is responsibility exercised by everybody, including in the boardroom.
So I think we owe the Australian media a question. Would take David Spears.
Thanks, Prime Minister. David Spears from Sky News. I just wanted to return to the climate change issue, if I could, to you, Prime Minister Cameron. Simply, do you believe there is international momentum towards putting a price on carbon? And Prime Minister Gillard, has there been any progress at these talks here in Perth?
Well, on the price on carbon, we have put a carbon floor price in through our budget. We think other countries are looking at this. If you want to get control of global emissions, if you want to deal with this issue, then the market is an effective way of doing that. It's often not enough on its own. There are changes in rules and regulations you also need to make. My belief in Britain's case and with our economy, that actually there are opportunities in green technology and green jobs that we want to take advantage of. We want to be leaders in this field, in the new technologies. So we've taken the steps that we've taken. We've given some international lead on this, but it's for other countries to make their own decisions in their own way.
I will be holding a press conference with the Commonwealth Secretary-General to discuss the events of the day, but as I indicated a little bit earlier today, the meeting has adopted the recommendations of the Commonwealth Ministerial Action Group on strengthening its role and work in the future to make sure that there are ways of getting involved if a country is starting to experience problems, rather than just watching that get to a situation where the only choice that leaders could be confronted with is suspension or expulsion. On the details of that, I'll be canvassing them with the Commonwealth Secretary-General at a later event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Julia.